On the morning of Monday, the 27th of March, 1905, a shop stood locked in Deptford, southeast London. It should have been opened by 7. Inside, on the floor of Chapman's oil and color store, lay Thomas Farrow. He was 71 years old. He had been beaten. Upstairs, his wife Anne lay unconscious in their bed. She would never wake to say who had done it. The only clue left behind was smaller than a coin. A single, greasy thumbprint pressed into the underside of a cash box tray. No British jury had ever convicted a killer on a fingerprint alone. This case would decide whether that print was enough to hang 2 men. Before we go further, take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a case like this one. Now, back to Deptford. Deptford in 1905 sat on the south bank of the Thames, inside the Metropolitan Police's district. It was a working district built around the docks and the river trade. Terraced houses lined narrow streets. Small shops served dock workers, laborers, and their families. High Street, Deptford, ran through the middle of it. It was lined with grocers, drapers, and trades of every kind. At number 34 stood Chapman's Oil and Color Store, a shop selling paints, oils, and household goods. It belonged to a man named Chapman, who owned it but did not live there. Its manager was Thomas Farrow. He and his wife Anne, 65 years old, lived above the shop. Their rooms were reached by a staircase at the back. Farrow opened early most mornings. He kept the week's takings in a cash box ready to hand over to Chapman each Monday. Britain in 1905 was 4 years into the reign of Edward VII. London's police had only recently begun to trust a new kind of evidence. The Metropolitan Police Fingerprint Bureau had opened at New Scotland Yard on the 1st of July, 1901. It followed the Belper Committee's decision to adopt a classification system developed by Sir Edward Henry, based on work first done in Bengal. By 1905, the Bureau held between 80 and 90,000 sets of fingerprints on file. Those records existed for one purpose only: to confirm the identity of a suspect already in custody, a known offender caught again. No one had yet used a fingerprint found at a crime scene, with no suspect named. It had never been used to identify an unknown killer and secure a murder conviction. A rival method still competed for the trust of the courts. It was called anthropometry, the Bertillon system, which measured the body rather than the fingertip. In 1905, which method deserved to be believed was still an open question. The Metropolitan Police organized its ground into numbered divisions, and Deptford fell within the boundary of the force's R and P divisions. Officers walking those beats knew the docks, the small factories, and the terraces of laborers' housing that ran back from the river. It was a district where casual work was common and steady work was not. Men loaded and unloaded barges by the day. They went home to rented rooms above shops, much like Chapman's. Deptford's officers knew their local population well. They kept track of what they called known men. These were petty offenders and small-time thieves, men who drifted between odd work and crime. That population was not hidden from police. It was cataloged and watched. When trouble came, it was the first place detectives looked. It was in this world of known men that detectives would eventually look for Thomas Farrow's killers. Alfred Ernest Stratton was 22 years old in the spring of 1905. He had grown up in Deptford, one of the district's own, a face already familiar to local officers. Police in the district knew him as a small-time criminal, a young man with rough company and no fixed trade. He was seeing a young woman named Annie Cromarty, who lived nearby. Some accounts say Alfred carried no formal conviction of his own. Others describe him only as an associate of known criminals. Either way, his name was already on their lists. When detectives later went looking for men worth watching, he was one more face among the docks and drift population the local force had long kept track of. His brother, Albert Ernest Stratton, was 20 years old. Albert was known to police as well. Some accounts describe him as having prior convictions for burglary. Others say only that he was known to associate with criminals. What is certain is that both brothers were familiar names to the local force long before the 27th of March. Albert kept company with a woman named Kate Wade. In the weeks before the murder, Alfred later said he had won a small sum of money as a prize for boxing. In a district where steady trade was scarce, a boxing purse was one of the faster ways to earn money. A young man without capital or a fixed job could put a purse in his pocket in a single evening. He claimed he buried roughly 4 pounds near a local waterworks, meaning to give it to Cromarty as a gift. This detail would matter later when police found money buried in exactly that place. On the Sunday night before the murder, the 26th of March, the two brothers were out together in the evening. What happened after that became the center of the case against them. Alfred later testified that he was woken around 2:30 in the morning by Albert, tapping at his window and asking for money. Alfred said he had none to give. By Alfred's account, the two brothers met again later that morning on Regent Street, well across the river from Deptford's docks and terraces. They stayed together until around 9 o'clock. Several people would later be named as having seen them together during that stretch of the morning. It was an account built to place both brothers far from the shop. It covered the very hour Thomas Farrow was answering a knock at his door. The Crown would spend weeks testing whether that story was true. It also had to test whether the story could survive evidence already sitting, unmatched, in a filing cabinet at Scotland Yard. It was early on Monday morning, the 27th of March. The street outside had not properly woken. The shop had not yet opened for the week's first customers. Someone knocked at the door of Chapman's Oil and Color store. It was answered. What followed left two people beaten. A cash box was forced open, and roughly 13 pounds in takings was gone. It was the very sum Farrow kept ready each week for his Monday handover to Chapman. 2 black stocking masks were later found discarded inside the shop, proof that whoever had come that morning had planned to hide their faces. That single detail told Chief Inspector Frederick Fox something important before he had a single suspect. Men who cover their faces during a robbery are usually afraid of being recognized. That fear pointed toward local men known in Deptford itself, not strangers passing through. Thomas Farrow was beaten on the shop floor with a blunt instrument and died of his injuries. Anne Farrow was beaten separately in the upstairs bedroom where she slept. She never regained consciousness. Neither victim could tell police anything about who had come through the door that morning. Whatever answers existed would have to come from the scene itself and from the people who lived and worked around it. The morning William Jones found the shop shut, he had come expecting the ordinary start to an ordinary week. Farrow was known for being at his post early, the door unlocked, the shop ready for trade before the street outside had properly filled. Jones tried the door. It did not give the way it should have. He looked through the front window and saw the shop's furniture out of place. It was overturned in a way that no tidy Monday opening ever left it. He did not go in alone. He went for Lewis Kidman, a man living nearby. The two returned together to force their way through the door Farrow had always opened without trouble. Inside, the shop was empty of customers and silent in a way neither man expected. Thomas Farrow lay on the floor near the counter, already beyond help. The two men went up the back stairs to the rooms above, the same stairs Farrow and his wife climbed every night. There, they found Anne Farrow in the bed, breathing but unconscious. She was unable to answer a single question put to her. She was taken to hospital. She would die there 4 days later, on the 31st of March, without ever waking. If you are finding this as unsettling as it was at the time, consider a like and a subscribe. It helps us keep uncovering these forgotten cases. Now, back to the record. Assistant Commissioner Melville McNagden examined the scene later that day. He moved past the obvious signs of the robbery, the forced cash box and the 2 discarded stocking masks. He stopped instead at something almost nobody else would have noticed. The tray inside the cash box was ordinary, thin metal, the kind that lifted out to let a shopkeeper count coin and notes beneath it. On its underside was a mark most officers would have wiped away without a thought. McNaughton did not wipe it away. He had it kept exactly as it was, untouched by further handling. It was sent on to the Fingerprint Bureau, rather than left to sit in an evidence room where careless hands might blur it beyond use. It was, for the period, an unusually careful piece of procedure. At the Bureau, Detective Inspector Charles Stockley Collins worked through the print methodically. He determined it was the impression of a right thumb left behind in ordinary sweat. It was the kind of mark any person might leave on a smooth surface without knowing it. He first eliminated the people already known to have touched the box: Thomas Farrow, Anne Farrow, and Detective Sergeant Atkinson. He compared each of their prints against the mark until none of them accounted for it. That left a print with no name sitting in a filing system built to confirm identities already known, not to discover one from scratch. For days, it could do nothing but wait. That name would have to come from old-fashioned police work, witnesses, local knowledge, and informants. 2 men had been seen leaving the shop shortly after the attack. A professional boxer named Henry Littlefield and a local girl named Ellen Stanton both spoke to police. They said they had seen a man in a dark brown suit and cap hurrying away from the shop around 7:15 that morning. Other witnesses described a second man, dressed in dark blue serge and wearing a bowler hat, seen near the same time. Fox and his detectives began comparing those descriptions against the known men of Deptford, the petty criminals already familiar to the local force. Alfred Stratton fit the description of the man in the brown suit. His brother Albert fit the description of the man in blue serge and the bowler hat. Neither fact alone was enough to arrest anyone. Deptford held plenty of young men who might answer a rough description. What police needed was something that tied a specific person, not just a type of person, to that morning. It came from Alfred's own girlfriend. Annie Cromarty went to police and told them that in the days after the murder, Alfred had gotten rid of a dark brown coat. He had changed his shoes and dyed them a different color. He had also asked her for a pair of old stockings. To detectives already holding 2 stocking masks from the crime scene, that request meant something specific. Cromarty's information did more than point toward Alfred. It also led police to roughly 4 pounds Alfred had buried near the waterworks. It was the same money he would later claim were boxing winnings, set aside as a gift for her. With Cromarty's account in hand, alongside the eyewitness descriptions, Fox and his detectives moved to make an arrest. On the 2nd of April, 1905, Alfred Stratton was arrested at a public house called the King of Prussia. The following day, the 3rd of April, his brother Albert was arrested on Deptford High Street. It was not far from the shop where Thomas and Anne Farrow had been attacked 7 days earlier. Once both brothers were in custody, they were fingerprinted. This was a routine step for anyone newly arrested and processed by the Metropolitan Police. Ink was pressed onto each finger in turn and rolled onto a card for the file. Collins took Alfred's prints and turned again to the smudge on the cash box tray. He compared them point by point. Sources differ on the exact number of matching ridge details Collins identified. Some give 11 points of agreement, others 12, but the conclusion was the same either way. The thumbprint left on the cash box belonged to Alfred Stratton. An inquest into the deaths of Thomas and Anne Farrow opened before the crime had even reached trial. On the 20th of April, 1905, the coroner's jury reached its conclusion. It returned a verdict of willful murder against both Alfred and Albert Stratton. That verdict sent the brothers forward to stand trial at the Central Criminal Court, known to Londoners as the Old Bailey. At the Old Bailey, the courtroom filled for a trial unlike any that had come before it in a British court. Reporters crowded in alongside the public. They were drawn by a case resting on a piece of evidence few of them had ever heard argued as proof of murder. The presiding judge was Mr. Justice Chenell. Leading the prosecution was Richard Muir, a barrister known for building cases from evidence rather than rhetoric. Muir called more than 40 witnesses over the course of the trial. His case moved from the men and women who had seen the brothers near the shop. It moved to Cromarty's account of the coat and the shoes. It ended with Collins and his print. The brothers were defended by a team of counsel that included H.G. Ruth, Curtis Bennett, and Harold Morris. Muir's first task was placing the brothers near the shop that morning. Henry Littlefield, the professional boxer, took the stand. He again identified Alfred Stratton as the man he had seen in the brown suit and cap. That man had been hurrying away from the shop shortly after the attack. Ellen Stanton followed him, and her account matched. Other witnesses described the second man in dark blue serge and a bowler hat in terms that matched Albert. Kate Wade, Albert's companion, was called next. She told the court that Albert had not been with her on the night before the murder, as the family had suggested. Her testimony weakened whatever alibi the defense might otherwise have built around Albert's whereabouts that night. Annie Cromarty then gave her account in open court. She described Alfred returning home with money he could not explain. She described him getting rid of his coat and his shoes soon after newspapers began reporting the murder. She told the court he had asked her to back up a false story for the police. Her testimony, already the reason detectives had focused on Alfred in the first place, now stood as sworn evidence before the jury. A prison worker named William Giddings gave testimony that struck at the brothers' unity. He told the court that Albert, while in custody, had said in effect that he expected Alfred would hang. Albert said he himself would get about 10 years. Albert had blamed his brother for leading him into the crime. Muir used the remark to show the jury something important. Even Albert seemed to believe, in a private and unguarded moment, that the two of them had done exactly what they now stood accused of. Then came Inspector Collins. He walked the jury through his findings on the print itself. He explained that it was a right thumb impression, left in ordinary perspiration on the smooth underside of the cash box tray. He explained how he had ruled out Thomas Farrow, Anne Farrow, and Detective Sergeant Atkinson as its source. He then demonstrated the matching ridge patterns between the crime scene print and Alfred Stratton's right thumb taken after his arrest. He went through them point by point. It was the first time a British jury had been asked to weigh this kind of evidence as the central pillar of a murder case. Before this trial, such evidence had only ever played a supporting role. The defense built its case on two grounds. The first was an alibi. Alfred testified to his account of that Sunday night and Monday morning. He described the tap at his window, the walk to Regent Street, and the hours spent together until 9 o'clock. All of it was offered as proof the brothers could not have been at the shop when the attack happened. He explained the money found in his possession as the boxing winnings he had buried weeks earlier, meant as a gift for Cromarty. The second ground was an attack on fingerprint evidence itself. The defense called Dr. John George Garson, an expert in the rival Bertillon system of body measurement, to challenge Collins's conclusions. It was meant to be the defense's strongest move. Instead, it became the trial's turning point. When Garson took the stand, the courtroom watched an expert witness's credibility collapse in real time. Under cross-examination, Muir produced 2 letters written by Garson on the very same day. One had gone to the Director of Public Prosecutions, the other had gone to the defense solicitor. Each letter suggested Garson was willing to offer his expert opinion to whichever side wished to engage him. Mr. Justice Channel did not wait for closing speeches to say what he thought of it. From the bench in front of the jury, he described Garson as an absolutely untrustworthy witness. It was a judgment reporters carried out of the courtroom and into the next morning's papers before the trial had even reached its verdict. The defense had planned to call a second expert, Henry Faulds. He was one of the earliest researchers to propose the forensic use of fingerprints. He believed a single print was not enough on its own to prove identity. Having watched Garson destroyed on cross-examination, the defense chose not to call Faulds at all. They feared Muir would do to him what he had just done to Garson. The jury retired to consider its verdict. It returned a little over 2 hours later, on the 6th of May, 1905. Both Alfred and Albert Stratton were found guilty. The charge before the court concerned the murder of Thomas Farrow. With a conviction already secured on that count, the separate charge relating to Anne Farrow's death was not pursued further. Mr. Justice Channel sentenced both brothers to death. There was no appeal to be made. The Court of Criminal Appeal did not yet exist in England. It would not be established until 1907, 2 years later. For Alfred and Albert Stratton, the jury's verdict and the judge's sentence were final the moment they were spoken. The brothers were held at Wandsworth Prison in the weeks that followed, awaiting the date set for their execution. It was the 23rd of May, 1905 at 9 o'clock in the morning. Both brothers were hanged together. The execution was carried out by a team of executioners recorded as John Billington, Henry Pierrepoint, and John Ellis. Accounts from those final days describe each brother blaming the other for what had happened. It echoed the remark William Giddings had reported at trial. Albert had privately admitted he expected Alfred to hang, while he himself faced a lesser fate. He had also claimed Alfred led him into the crime. Whatever passed between the two brothers in their last hours, the record shows neither one left it a secret that each held the other responsible. The Stratton brothers case stands as the first murder conviction in British legal history secured primarily on a fingerprint. It settled, in one courtroom, a question that had never before been put to a British jury. Could a mark left by sweat on metal be trusted over an alibi and a face? After the 6th of May, 1905, it could. The Fingerprint Bureau at Scotland Yard was only 4 years old at the time of the trial. It had proven its method in the highest stakes setting the law allows. Fingerprint evidence would go on to become a standard feature of British murder trials in the years that followed. It was no longer a novelty argued over by rival experts, but a tool a jury could be asked to trust. What convicted Alfred and Albert Stratton was not a confession, not a weapon, not a witness who saw the blow struck. It was a print smaller than a coin, left behind by two men who thought a stocking mask was disguise enough. Thomas and Anne Farrow never gave evidence in the case brought over their own deaths. They did not need to. The mark on the cash box tray spoke for them. If this case has stayed with you, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next one. Leave a comment with the case you would like covered next from anywhere in the world, from the years between 1850 and 1950. There are more records like this one, waiting to be read again